Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's podcast. I am so glad you took a few minutes to stop in. Hey, this week we're here to cover part 2 of our outdoor living series. We're going to wander into 3 or 4 elements that add beauty and ambiance, security, and whimsy to any outdoor residential or commercial landscape. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. Hey guys, just a brief break in this week's podcast here and an invitation for you to go over to youryardcoach.com and check out the products and services that we offer there. For most people, DIY landscaping on a medium to larger level can be very, very intimidating. And the book and the course and some of the checklists that we do offer really streamline the process and bolster a DIYer's confidence. So I invite you to go over there, check it out, and if you have any questions, you can always email me at youryardcoach@gmail.com. Now, let's get back to the podcast. Hey, welcome back. Hey, in part 1, we covered outdoor kitchens and structures. That particular video and podcast will be linked below. Here we cover other accessories that take the outdoor living experience over the freaking top and really add that cherry on top to your landscape. Hey, our first one, H2O. We're going to talk about water. It's hard to argue with, but the sights and sounds of water, both in a natural setting and in a domestic residential landscape, there's nothing like it. Nothing like the sights and sounds of water, both still from reflection capabilities, etc., but especially falling or running water. The past 2 homes that I have owned, I have installed water features at my homes, and you kind of called them showrooms as well. There was many times where I brought clients over to my personal home to show them what my water feature looks like, how it is performing, and how I installed it. I am very, very fond of running water and the absolute game-changing environment that sound and look add to a landscape. Water features now, for me anyways, are man-made pond structures and 2 brooks, one that feeds the pond and another main bigger one down near the roadway here at our home at Brook and Pond. To be honest, I actually like a man-made water feature for my residential home. And why? That's because I can control a few things. I cannot control Mother Nature. And Mother Nature has made this pond and 2 brooks very quaint, very beautiful, very sound ambiance over the top. But there has also been times where it has been an absolute tempest. It has been a devil reincarnate when it comes to fast-flowing, brook-changing, bank-eroding water. It really has. And I have no control over that whatsoever. The small dam that controls my pond is marginal at best right now. The person who built it, whoever built it, really probably didn't have a lot of experience. Probably put an excavator, dug it out, called it good, threw some seed down, and let Mother Nature take care of it. It does have a little bit of leak to it, which, in our drought that we have going on right now, it's draining the pond out. It looks more like a muddy bog than anything else right now. But in a man-made residential water feature, I can control where it goes, when it flows, and need not worry about massive gully washers or dam breakers during heavy rains and spring melts. It kind of tends to lower a guy's anxiety levels quite a bit when I can drain it in the winter, store the pump, and revisit again and enjoy it for spring, summer, and fall of the following year. Now, the types of water features out there, we have all seen them. In this day and age, to a certain degree, I think lined or basin-contained water features are much more popular than the second type of water feature I'm going to talk to in a minute. Only in my experience as an installer and an owner can I say this statement. Many folks do not like pond maintenance after they get into water gardening. They I find that unless they are retired, certainly dedicated, certainly willing to learn, that the upkeep of a closed pond system, which tends to need a little more upkeep than the average water feature, people get disenchanted with it. They really do. And not only that, if you add fish and other things to it, you have fish to feed. You have the waste of those fish that you have to balance out between the nitrites from their poop and algae blooms and other stuff. Sometimes that's just more than what they bargained for. So the few ponds that I did put in, I put in probably about 6 to 10, and I never got over 11 by 16. I never got into super big ones because my niche market was residential homes and residential homes in developments usually. So 11 by 16 pond, sometimes it took up a bit of the backyard. So that was my niche market. And what I found through the installation of these is people would call up a couple months later and want to point the accusatory finger, even after they were given how to care for DVDs and all kinds of things. They kind of threw the towel over the third rope. They just didn't want to do it anymore. So after about 2 years, I said, no more. I'm not installing ponds for people. What I rolled over to was the pondless waterfall, which I installed up until the last year of my landscape career. The pondless waterfall is also a basin-lined, rubber liner, padded fabric, gravel-filled, boxes-filled, pump vaults, 2-inch lines, spillway. You'll get the picture when you see the video. But all there is the stream, not the pond itself. The stream, depending on the length that you want, my average was probably, shall we say, 12 to 20 feet, something like that. And the fall ratio was probably in the neighborhoods of 12 to 24 inches max. So the stream would gurgle. It would be so much more easier to care for. You had the sights and the sounds to go along with it. And then the water dumped into a gravel basin and literally disappeared. And we would decorate them up with boulder ringed gravel basin, boulder lined and cobble lined and gravel lined stream beds, and naturalize it as much as possible, both with rock features and greenscape. And in my experience, people honed in on that a lot more. They found that the sights and sounds of falling and running water was more appealing than the pond and the upkeep. And the pondless waterfall is virtually maintenance free. It really is. You have to blow some leaves off the basin and maybe around the stream during the fall. You should probably keep some kind of string algae check in the heat. The more sun it has, the more susceptible it can be to a string algae. But those are easily controlled as well with some chemical treatments. Also UV lighting that can be incorporated into the systems. So pondless waterfalls are, for me, the pinnacle of a residential water feature. It really is. Now, the construction of these things are not really that hard. Are they DIY friendly? Absolutely. Absolutely they are. A little bit of due diligence and a little bit of education, and you can be off and running and build it in, depending on the size, you could build it 2 weekends, maybe a weekend if you have some help. Not a problem at all. So when we talk about water features in the landscape, you can go pond or you can go pondless. Now let's talk about another one. How about the standalone water features? the ones that are also self-contained. They run off of pumps and a little bit of electricity, and they're basically two different kinds. There's the old-fashioned cement statuary type of water features, the I don't want to say Greek look, but cement statuary water features that are of a myriad of sizes, down to something you can pick up with two hands to monolithic, multi-ton type of statuary pieces that you can buy and have installed, or you can install it if you're good at it. Now, when I was in the nursery industry, we used to carry a lot of these. And back in the 70s and 80s, even when I reintroduced myself to the green industry in the 2011s for a couple of years, I found that, I don't know, they kind of sat there all season and they did not sell very well. What sells nowadays is the more modern and much more creative composite type of water features. The stacked slate urn water features, the spillway bowls, and other things that are put out by companies like Aquascape and Atlantic and other companies. And these are, number one, they're 5 to 10% the weight of any cement statuary fountain, and they are self-contained with a little more naturalization incorporated in it. Most of it is line basin filled with recirculating water that goes up through the feature itself, down into the gravel at the bottom where the pump is in the basin, and then it recirculates. And these things, they're cool. I mean, they have them even to where you have fire bowl water features now. And I think they're very, very creative. They are a definite luxury item, but that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the cherry on top to a residential landscape. So if you look at water features themselves, you can have Mother Nature, like I have, or you can have the man-made stuff. And the man-made stuff is not hard. It really isn't. You really have to look into them, find your price point and your budget that you want to hit, and then order them up. There are some retail outlets that carry them. You can look them up, just as easy as I can. Or you can go online and find them, Aquascape and Atlantic and other retailers that sell stuff online, and then install it. These things here, these spillway bowls and stacked urns and all the more modern composite type of water features, these things are a day. There's some of them, like I used to get the stacked slate urn, and it was the perfect price point water feature for small residential yard. Stake it near a front doorway, or stake it by, in the backyard near the patio. Perfect sight, perfect sound, and perfect price point for me to incorporate into an overall landscape design and build type of project. So look into them, see what you think, and see if you can come up with a water feature that would really complement all the things that you're going to have in your landscape. A side benefit of any water feature, and I really direct this towards Weed Patch Ranch that we had before we went on the road and then resettled here in northern Maine. But the pondless waterfall and the water feature out front, talk about your wildlife magnets. They are an absolute draw, especially where we lived in the hot Central Valley. It was a water source, and we had birds of all kinds, furry critters of all kinds visit, up into and including raccoons and possums, coyotes, bobcats. They all found this water source and used it. And I can remember a great morning walking out on a warm summer morning. I don't remember exactly the year, but the stacked slate urn out front was running. And I came out, and there's two coyotes curled up on the front lawn, and they got up, They never saw me immediately. They went over, got a little drink, and then walked around the front yard a little bit and then saw me and jogged off. No threat, no danger or anything else, but they came and used the water source for their daily drink and moved on. And I thought that was always kind of neat. I just like the fact that they use my landscape to come in and have a look-see and take a rest. So it's just a small sidebar there. So let me finish with this particular segment on water features, and that is, with water feature, there is always the thought of child safety, of pet safety, etc. These concerns should be real, but not nearly as much as, say, a swimming pool, or a hot tub. Many elements I have spoke of are as safe as any water feature can be. The pondless waterfall, the stream itself, is probably less than an inch deep as it's flowing from the spillway down to the basin. Not exactly a drowning level of water, really not. So when you talk about the pondless waterfall, or you're talking about a standalone water feature, drown proofing isn't something that is super thought about when it comes to these water features. Now you get into the ponds, or the recreational ponds that are becoming popular now, and you get back into the swimming pool type of mentality where you have to either teach kids to swim, or you have to fence the thing off, one or the other, especially if you got littles. You got to pay attention to that kind of stuff. But the other ones, not so much. I can remember my youngest playing in the pondless waterfall, the first one that he and I built. There was no danger. He was able to sit on the boulder. He was able to sit on the boulders and play in the water, and there was absolutely none. He was probably about 8 at the time. So, all right, let's move on. Let's talk about another element in the landscape that you can incorporate into water features and everything. Let's talk about the low voltage lighting. Now, I have done separate videos and podcasts on lighting specifically. I'll have a couple of those listed below, but for the most part, to take water features and greenscape and walkways, buildings, dark spots, building entrances, etc., can be so greatly enhanced through the means of low voltage lighting in your landscape. Tastefully done, low voltage lighting brings a landscape to life after the sun goes down, far more than security lights and that kind of stuff. These systems accent water features beautifully. They highlight the scaffolding of beautiful trees. They backwash fences. And walls and shadow up plants that are planted in front. Softly kind of lighting walkways and brightening dark spots that enhance security and give the homeowner a sense of security when they have to take the trash out at 8 o'clock at night or something into that dark side yard or whatever. I'm a huge fan of landscape lighting to a certain level. Now, you can make it look like the Vegas Strip. You can. But for the most part, I like to dumb it down enough to where it adds ambiance. It takes care of the security thing, and it highlights what you want to highlight, but you're not going to make it look, like downtown Manhattan or the Las Vegas Strip. You're just not. You're going to do it in a tasteful manner and then be able to enjoy it. And imagine being out there after you've done your project, and maybe you have a small water feature going, you have lighting going, you've got the outdoor kitchen going, you're sitting underneath your new patio structure, and you have some friends or family over. You have taken the typical patio grass and tree landscape and just elevated it up to a whole nother enjoyment level. You really have. Lighting is a very DIY friendly landscape element that can take a week or a weekend to install depending on your schedule, your budget, and the time that you can allow for the installation. And since it is low voltage, safety is a kind of a secured thing. And the high voltage end of it is as easy as plugging in a hairdryer or a toaster or any, home appliance. You take the transformer, you take the cord, you plug it in the wall. That's the only high voltage you have to worry about. And in transformers, the top portion of the appliance is where the high voltage comes in, and it gets dumbed down to low voltage. And in this day and age, the modern transformers are what we call multi-lug. So you'll have 12, 13, 14, 15, probably up to 17 volts total. And those are multi-lugged for the reason of distance, usually. Distance, and in some cases, the number of fixtures that you have on any one particular lighting cable. Now, for me, I have a small system in the back. I have a small system in the front, and the transformers that we use are 150 watt, more than enough to take care of the fixtures that we have. As a matter of fact, I could still add another 10 or more on there, and I'd probably still be well within that 150 watt transformer. And when it comes to transformers, you don't want to go past the 80%, whatever 80% is, 150. That's kind of your cutoff as far as the number of watts you're going to draw off of that particular transformer. Now, for me, small accent lights and path lights that I have on the gable sides of the house, some accents on the corners of my back boulder bed in the back, and some up lights that light up the birch trees, both front yard and backyard. And that is it. Total of, I think, 12. I think so, 12. And that's all I need. I'm out in the wilderness. I don't want to make it look like a city boulevard. I just want to highlight a couple of things, and that's it. So using lighting tastefully and usefully, make it form a function that accentuates all your hard work, and then allow you, your family, your guests to navigate around the backyard, around the front yard, etc. Really puts that cherry on top look to things. Fixtures can be as cheap as you want them or as expensive as you want them. I have put fixtures in yards that are $300 and $400 a piece, and then I've put them in that are $9 a piece, depending on the budget of the client at the time. So lighting is something that is another luxury item, but also when it comes to landscape enjoyment, resale value, etc., you are going to be the icing on the cake in the neighborhood. You really are. Now, there are those out there that contend that landscape lighting scares off wildlife and disrupts their harmonizing sleep patterns and all. I've had comments about them and how that it's really a pretentious type of landscape element to put in. Those comments are probably being based more on someone who has overdone it rather than have done it correctly and tastefully. Now, for me, the lights come on at dusk. I have to adjust them throughout the seasons, but they come on at dusk, and I generally have them kicked off by midnight. So the yard is dark from midnight until dawn. I don't think, based on the barred owls and the chickadees and the jays and all the other bird life that we have around here, the fireflies that were here in the summer, I have not seen any sort of drop in their activity because of my landscape lighting. So I'm just kind of reserve my true opinion of someone who blurts out stuff like that, because I know it could be overdone, but I don't overdo it. And I don't suggest that you do anyway. So something that I did not have when I first got into landscape construction, and that was LED bulbs. LED bulbs have changed the tapestry of the landscape industry tremendously. And now, with their very low wattage draw on each bulb, you can use much smaller transformers. You can use smaller cables at times, and you can place a few more fixtures on your low voltage cable. For me, I have always used and will continue to use 12-2 cable. And for those not in the know, there is 10-2 cable, 12-2 cable, 14 and 16-2 cable. There's even 18-2 cable, but not many people use that small a cable. But for me, 12-2 covers the gamut. It gives me plenty of current and very little voltage drop at the end of my runs. So I have the same brightness on the last fixture as I do on the first fixture. Now, in the back, with the two gabled ends of the house being done now, I have taken my multi-lug, my multi-tap transformer, and have gone from 12 volts, and I've pushed it up to 13 volts going out to those particular fixtures. So I've counteracted any sort of voltage drop, and to look at them, you cannot see any difference between the first fixture and the last fixture on the line. So a little installation how-to type of thing for you. All right, let's talk about our next one, and that is with the water and with the lighting. Now we're going to talk about fire. And fire pits are not anything new. My gosh, they've been around for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Back to First Nations and indigenous peoples. And once fire was discovered and controlled, they built them and used them in pits where they did their cooking and everything else. But that's obviously not what we're talking about here. We're talking about something that is recreational, something to be gathered around. Yes, you can go out and cook on it. We cooked our ribeye steaks on our fire pit last Thanksgiving. And these things are places for people to come together and congregate and enjoy each other's company in the presence of a warm fire on a summer evening or a fall evening, even a winter evening, depending on where you're at. We are now starting to cool off enough that it would be nice to fire up the fire pit out there. And fire pits are just like water features and many other landscape elements. You can make them extremely inexpensive, or you can build them and make them into some fancy thing that runs on natural gas or propane or whatever. The one that I did out here initially was free. It was leftover fire brick and brick that was left behind by the previous owner. And I dug a little area out over the pond and assembled a bunch of bricks in a circular fashion, left a couple of vent holes on one side, and bam, there you go. We have a fire pit with natural wood burning. And for some people, they love the natural wood burning. Others, they would prefer to have gas or propane. It's a personal choice. But to have something like that, and you can picture how all these little accessories come together and play off of each other. They really can. You have your outdoor kitchens where you've prepared a meal for your guests and your family who are visiting. And as the sun goes down, your lighting comes on. The whole time your water feature is running and creating that sight and sound ambiance. And then after everybody's done, you go out and gather around a fire and have a cocktail or, roast some s'mores or do whatever you want to do. And all of these accessories kind of complement each other. Fire pits are not necessarily expensive in any way, shape, or form. Just a circle of rocks in a cleared area is enough to have a fire pit if that's what you want to do. Mine is brick, yes, but you can make it out of a number of things. You can cement in cobblestones. You can make you've been to campgrounds. You've seen the metal ones that you can make it out of. You can make it into elaborate cinder block and stucco and all number. Your imagination is the only thing that's going to limit you. So fire pits, along with all these other accessories, are something that you can consider. So there you go. Our last one is landscape and garden whimsy. Now, when I say this, I'm going to say it with a, Yeah, let me put it this way. In so many landscapes, and I know you have seen them, you've seen these gardens that literally have, shall we say, a personality. Some personalities can be kind of quirky. Some can be kind of sloppy. And some can kind of be unique and kind of make you go, huh, never would have thought of that type of whimsy. But all have a personality, whether it be fixtures like car fronts, empty wheelbarrow planter beds, rosettas on the fence, whatever, you know, it's another thing kind of like lighting. You can overdo it as much as you can underdo it. And there are lots of landscapes that overdo it to the point of looking cluttery and junky. And although to the homeowner, it's like, this is my nirvana, this is my Shangri-La, and I have it looking this way because X, whatever it might be. But you have to remember that some garden art, garden whimsy is not always reflective good on the neighborhood, shall we say. And especially if you're in a neighborhood that has like an HOA, and you can only have certain things, and you want to have a front yard vegetable garden. Coast to coast, your whole front yard is going to be a vegetable garden. And your HOA goes, nah, we prefer you to have a grass and a tree and some foundation shrubs, and that's it. Well, don't go into those kinds of neighborhoods and buy a home if those are the rules, whether they be good, bad, or indifferent. If you voluntarily bought in that neighborhood and you're trying to do this, expect a little bit of pushback, if not a lot of pushback. I think garden whimsy can be tastefully done, and it can highlight some elements of your landscape. It can add a certain personality to the landscape, and then it can be done in a fashion that you just kind of shake your head. And we've all seen that house or houses in the neighborhood that kind of go, what the hell were they? Whatever. Just a word of caution. Whimsy and garden art and theme type of landscapes, think it out a little bit. Think of your own property values and think of the neighborhood. And some people don't give two craps about what other people think. And that's fine. But for the most part, you kind of have to think about what you're doing to the neighborhood's values, what you're doing to your own values. And if you want to get a little quirky about stuff, buy a home in a more rural setting where your quirkiness isn't going to affect the values of other places. If I decided to get quirky here at Brook and Pond, it would be no big deal because you cannot see the house from the road, and the road is rural enough to where my nearest neighbor is a mile away. So if I decided to get quirky, yeah, I wanted to do some upside down Cadillacs on the front lawn or something. All right, there would not be, but I'd certainly be shooting myself in the foot if I decided to turn around and sell in a couple of years and people came and looked at it and I went, what do you think of my quirkiness? And they'd turn around and leave the property. So just remember. So let's wrap this up. Are these elements we've talked about last week and this week, are the elements of luxury? Yes, to a certain extent, yes. Can we survive without them? Of course we can. Can we afford them all? Not all of them, and not all of us. So are they DIY friendly? Everything that I've mentioned in this outdoor series is DIY friendly. Some might challenge you a little bit more than others, but yes, they can all be done on your own. You'd have to check with your local municipalities whether you have to start doing with outdoor kitchens and gas lines and electrical and permits and other stuff. There's some places like where I live, you would just do it and nobody would care. But once the grass is mowed, the veggies are watered, The flowers are deadheaded, leaves are raked, cars washed, etc. You can consider these little landscape accessories and additions as time and resources allow if you're a brand new homeowner. Maybe you can't afford all these other things yet. But as time goes on, wouldn't it be nice to get rid of those or get done with those chores? You can sit down and enjoy these elements that we've outlined for you, on a Saturday evening or any evening for that matter. They really do add a complimentary glow to your home value, your home enjoyment, and in many cases, the memories that you create there. Hey, any questions about these landscape elements? Assistance in designing them, or any landscape question, you can contact me at email. It's listed below. Drop a comment. I would greatly appreciate it. And over on the YouTube channel, maybe a subscription. Subscribe. Doesn't cost you nothing. And I'll catch you guys next week. As always, to your landscape success. And I'll say goodbye for now.